Hey Dr. Letts, so welcome to my last RNA for this section, I guess is what I'll call it. These readings were very interesting to me, and I have a lot to say about a lot of them, and so I'm just going to go ahead and jump right in with less of an explanation. So I'm going to start with the sex on campus, so basically that hookup culture and how that's becoming more commonplace. With that, I leaned more towards the side of it is a way for women to kind of take back their sexuality and be able to really show off their sexuality in a way that they want to. College life is really busy. Hooking up was kind of a really big thing at my undergrad. We had a very large leadership population, and so a lot of my students did participate in hookup culture, and so it was something I was very familiar with as an RA because we kind of had to be so that we could teach around that kind of culture that was at Western. So since it's becoming more commonplace, something that was very fascinating to me that someone brought up in our group, I can't remember exactly who said it, but she said, I think it was Mackenzie, but said something along the lines of, since hookup culture is becoming more commonplace, does that mean that people are not wanting that connection anymore, that romantic connection? And it took me a really long time to kind of contemplate that answer. It took me almost a week, I think, to finally fully contemplate that answer. And I don't think it's a lack of wanting a connection. I think it's the need and the want to have that connection, but then unfortunately not having that time to give to that connection. So kind of what they talked about the article is you can either date or you can give up an opportunity. And that's, I feel what a lot of college kids see is, this isn't a time for me to be finding a boyfriend, girlfriend, partner. This is a time for me to be gaining leadership opportunities and be gaining different things that are going on in my life and bettering my resume and bettering my opportunities. And dating can be in the future. Dating is for later. And so I think it's that still normal urge to want to have a connection with another individual and still wanting that romantic feeling, but then the lack of time being given to individuals to be able to have those connections, to be able to date. And so for me, this was very normal for me in my undergrad. I've talked to my vignettes before about my not so great relationship that I was in through a lot of my undergrad, through half of my experience in my undergrad. And after that, I really didn't find the time to date. The time that I could have put into another person, the pros of me putting my energy into another human did not outweigh the pros of me taking more opportunities on campus. And so I ended up not dating really. I dated around casually. I kind of was talking to some people off and on, and it really just wasn't really there for me. So I kind of related a lot with wanting that connection. You want to have a connection with other individual. You want to have that romantic feelings towards everyone. But there's a lack of time for college students because I feel we are urging them to take more leadership opportunities and to slow down with the dating and to slow down with other stuff. And so, yeah, that's where I think that a lot of misconceptions of hookup culture come from, is a lack of wanting a connection and a lack of committing. I think it's I'm probably rambling at this point, but the need and the want to have a connection with another individual is there, but the time isn't. I could go on about this part for a really long time, so I'm just going to go ahead and move on. I'm going to talk about the Title IX. Yes, Title IX, the link kind of where we talked about the mishandled cases, since that kind of moves into what I'm talking about now. This surprised me. I think it's just because I'm such an optimist, and I like to think the best of people, the best of systems, and I always trust the process kind of thing. Trust in the process and trust that it'll be okay. But then this kind of showed me that sometimes you can't even trust in the process. The fact that a normal case, like a mishandled case, took like on average 2.5 years to kind of fix itself, or not fix itself, sorry, to like be investigated and to like be resolved, at least like 2.5 years is the average from like the last time I looked. That blew my mind. It blew my mind that it took that long to do investigations into how it was mishandled, and like seeing, and then it just also blew my mind because sometimes it said 8 years. Like 2.5 years is just the average, given like some of them may have been only a couple months, but like there are cases out there that took 8 years to kind of figure out why they went that long. It just kind of blew my mind. I also wasn't really surprised by the fact that private universities end up having more mishandled cases than public, or at least from the last time I looked. Just because like I feel like private schools, like they have such a small task force for so much stuff. There are so many people wearing so many hats that there's bound to be more mistakes happening because of that. And so yeah, like it really didn't surprise me too much about like the private schools having, it's not too much more, it's only about like 10 more from the last time I looked, 10 or 15 more. I think math's not my strong suit, so I'm just looking at the numbers and just giving you a rough estimate, but it still is a significant amount, and more so than I would like to see. So yeah, that's kind of all I had to say about that one. It kind of just was like, broke my heart in a way. So the next is rape on campus, and like honestly, I'm not going to talk too much about the article because if I'm being very transparent, I could only make it through 1.5 pages before I started feeling physically ill. Without getting too much into it, it just brought up some very triggering memories for me from my past relationship and